G'day guys, welcome back to the off season. Today we're going to have a look at some of our favourite combos of all time. I've got my 5'8", Matty the Waterboy, joining me once again. We're excited for this one, mate.
What's going on, Guru? I can't wait for this. Had an inbox sent to me saying, can you do the best club combos, like halves combos? And I was thinking about that, like, yeah, that'd be good. But then I thought of some like non-half 5'8" combos. So I think expanding it out is a good idea.
And yeah, we've only got one halfback and 5'8" combo that we're out of our four here. So yeah, it's going to be a cracking episode. Looking forward to this. Some great players on this list. Good God. Matty, if you had to pick a combo that missed out on selection here as far as our favourites go, I think Cliffy and Beaver, one of my favourites of all time. Who would you go for? I
would say probably Peter Sterling and Brett Kenny. They were obviously huge, but I can't really talk about them because they were before my time, but everyone kind of talks about them. And also the first actually combo I thought of, but I didn't put him in because I thought of a couple others as well. It's just Gavin Cooper and Jonathan Thurston. Yep. Obviously, Thurston put Gavin Cooper away for so many tries, and Cooper made most of Thurston's tackles. They just work together so well.
It's a good shout, those two. Now, obviously, JT, he does get a feature in here, and you guys can probably guess who with, but Gavin Cooper is a cracking shout. They were fantastic together. Mate, do you want to kick us off? You've obviously got Jonathan Thurston at the top of your list and his little partner in crime. When we talk about the unluckiest guys to never win an NRL premiership, give me Mango every day of the fucking week. Tell me about JT and Bowen.
I wish they won a comp. I was going through combos this morning, and this was the first one that came to mind. After, of course, Gavin Cooper and Thurston, I was thinking Thurston. I thought, how could I forget Matty Bowen? So I just watched a couple of their highlights. There's this 3-minute video on YouTube. It's just the best. It's like, it's not put together the best, but it's like that. I think that makes it so good. It's just, they just had this uncanny combination where they just knew where each other were at all times. And it's funny, like this was my memory of it, but I had to go back to watch just to confirm. It was all just JT either turning Matty Bowen inside or going out and like kicking inside, and Matty Bowen would just be there. They just had this crazy knack of always finding each other. I read an article as well this morning. Matty Bowen said he had no idea what was going to happen at all these times. Had no idea. Like, obviously they trained for it, but they didn't it was all just off instinct, and none of it was set plays. It was like just all instinctive. I think it's a huge shame that Matty Bowen wasn't around in 2015. Obviously, he had a couple of knee recos, I think in the late 2010s, but then he came back, and I think in 2012 he might have come in the top 3 for the Dally M's or something like that. I think he almost made Origin. I think it was the Queensland's 18th man, so it was good to see him come back, and those two had a fucking great year that year. And then, in that same article, Aaron Payne said they'd always just do this shit at training. It was such a, we were talking about JT's legacy yesterday on another podcast. I really wish these two had a premiership together. It would have been so heartwarming. Maybe, I don't know. Everyone loves Bowen and JT. They're just the best.
Yeah, and you obviously mentioned that you watched that highlights package this morning. I haven't watched it today, but I've watched it so many times throughout my life. There's a couple of tries that really stand out for me. Obviously, the try in the Indigenous All-Stars game.
Oh, yes.
The banana kick that just came from nowhere. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the game where they trialled that ridiculous fucking, you take a player off the field for a 10-minute period or power play or something along those lines. Right. And I'm pretty sure the Indigenous All-Stars team were down a player or maybe down 2 players or whatever it was, and they came up with that. Just incredible, the combo these two had. Matty, the other one that stands out for me, and real rugby league nerds will know what I'm trying to describe here, the Cowboys had a game where they wore an all navy blue kit.
Yep.
It was unreal. I think it was like a heritage sort of kit. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but they take it down the right edge, and then it's JT. I think JT kicks it back infield, and Matty Bowen catches it. Yeah. I still remember him putting the ball down, and then he turns to JT and waves to him on the sideline to sort of say thanks. These two, some of the shit they came up with, and occasionally they do it where JT get the ball and Matt Bowen would be going at full pace there, and he'd throw it right around his body. And there's just like there's no other guys that could pull that off as often as they did, turning all the way around his body at top pace, landing that ball, and then Matty Bowen would go. You mentioned there that we obviously spoke about Thurston and his incredible legacy in our game. Matt Bowen didn't win a premiership, but had that moment in State of Origin, Game 1, 2005, I think it was.
Game 1, yeah.
Game 1, he takes the intercept, incredible stuff. But for me, mate, like Origin used to roll around every year, and Origin, the most exciting time of the year. I used to also fucking love Origin because JT would leave the Cowboys and the keys would be handed to Matty Bowen, and he'd play a hybrid fullback, halfback, 5'8" role, and he would absolutely tear teams to fucking pieces. I remember being at the SFS one night, watching the Cowboys playing the Roosters. I want to say 09 around that mark, maybe a little bit earlier. I'm not quite sure. And Jonathan Thurston was playing Origin. I think Matt Bowen played halfback. I think he actually came back from injury. He was wearing jersey 19 or something that night. And he torched the Sydney Roosters. I think there was a chip over the top try. There's another one where he went the length. And the thing I loved about Mango, mate, was that he would make some of the greatest players in the world look stupid, and he would do it giggling and smiling the entire time. He was the fucking king.
He was so good. You can't not. He's one of those players, a bit like Benji. Like everyone just loves him.
Yeah.
It's very rare to find someone that dislikes Matty Bowen. He's just one of the great entertainers of our game. I also noticed, and obviously I do remember this, but it's good to get a refresher. And I implore everyone to go watch that video. Just type in Thurston Bowen, you'll find it on YouTube. Because I remember Thurston most for like obviously 2015, and where he was doing all types of crazy shit. But he was doing crazier shit with Matty Bowen. Like he was putting chips over the top all the time, like little kicks inside. Just it was crazy some of the shit Thurston was doing.
Yeah, Matty Bowen, just having a look through his career here. Obviously, he did play for the Kangaroos in 2004. Seems like an age ago. Played 2 games for the Kangaroos, 10 games for Queensland, scoring 4 tries. Obviously, the one that he did score, though, one of the most important. Obviously, they didn't go on to win that series because then the resurrection of Joey Johns began. But an incredible series, an incredible moment for Matty Bowen. 270 first-grade games, 130 tries. He's going to try just about every second game. And that Cowboys team, they weren't always relevant realistically. And I know that we always... and this is something that I think people forget at times that, Jonathan Thurston, he arrives in 05, he wins the Dalian medal, gets into a grand final, and I think people look back and go, he made that franchise what it was. Matty Bowen led them to a prelim final the year before that. Like, he was incredible that season, and for the couple of years before that, he was great as well. 2002, he's so young. He plays 24 games, scores 12 tries in a team that didn't do overly well. Like, Matty Bowen was so important to this team. Just having a look through his career as well, like 2007, 27 games, 22 tries. 2005, 25 games, 21 tries. An absolute freak, Matty Bowen.
I really miss him. And as we said at the start, he obviously left after 2013 was his last year in the NRL for the Cowboys. And obviously, he had a long career, debuting in 2001. But yeah, what a shame that they didn't get that premiership together. But they've given us, Matty Bowen's given us hours and hours and hours of highlights. So I think every rugby league fan is thankful and grateful that we got to see Matty Bowen.
I think the other thing I want to throw in there with Matty Bowen, I would have given my right arm to watch him feature in an Auckland Nines competition.
Oh, yeah.
He would have absolutely torched it. Imagine him and JT at their peak playing in one of those competitions.
God, that would be...
I think Matty Bowen alone in one of those comps, I genuinely think he would have rivaled Sean Johnson as the best Nines player. He would have been incredible. Those two.
So Matty Bowen actually, he went to Super League. So he clocked over 300 games in the end. If you combine NRL and Super League. Yeah.
Fuck, that's impressive. Geez, there was a couple of other, I think he had a few cousins that played as well during that time up there for the Cowboys. Was it Brenton Bowen?
Yeah, that's right.
He could play too. He was the one... He scored that try against Manly that day where they went the length of the field. Do you remember that one?
I don't.
I think it was Manly that they kicked into the in goals. It was at Brookvale Oval, and they offloaded in the in goals Matty Bowen to Brenton Bowen, and they went the length and scored.
Yeah, right.
A crazy try.
They had Javid Bowen as well.
Javid Bowen, that's the other one. Yeah, he's still playing it. Isn't he running around up in Queensland Cup still?
I don't know. Where's Brenton Bowen?
I'm not sure where he ended up after the Cowboys. Not sure what he. I remember he was also a gun on Rugby League 1 or 2 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The old 9 out of 10 pace, getting a dummy half. Thanks, Chief.
Far, yeah. Put your far. I always put Reece Wester at hooker.
Yeah, Reece Wester at 9. Get the ball to Utah. 8 tackle breaks later.
Yeah, so yeah, Branson was around from 03 to 08. Yeah.
Fuck, he could play. Yeah, those two of the greatest we will ever see. Devastating they didn't win a comp together, though. And I think that, probably more casual rugby league fans would probably just assume that Bowen was in that premiership winning side. But of course, Lachlan Coote came in and did a tremendous job, to Lachlan Coote's credit. But
oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's not taking anything away from Coote.
Yeah.
Coote was so good that year and definitely deserved that premiership. And yeah, this is taking nothing away from Lachlan Coote. It's just like, it would have been cool to see the combo of Bowen and JT win that comp.
definitely
Also,
deserved it.
Javid Bowen retired just
When
recently.
did he retire?
I think 2021. He
2021,
did his knee or something. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
All right, let's move to your next two. Fuck, I love watching these two and their highlights. Incredible stuff. One of them in particular. There's certain guys in rugby league, like when you think banana kick, you straight away think Joey. For me, when I think left foot step, I straight away think Brad Fittler. When I think flick pass, it's Matt Gidley, Daylight, and whoever the fuck else you want to throw in there. His right-hand flick was... It's just... No one has been able to match it in rugby league for me.
Yeah, I think when I think flick pass, I'll probably put Benji on the same kind of level, but it's such a different... Obviously, Gidley's playing at centre, and he's just somehow popping it to Tamata, who's the other guy here. Whereas Benji's obviously playing 5'8", so it's completely different, but you're right. The Gidley flick... It was just, there's been a lot of winger center combos that have come and gone in the last, 20-something years that I've been watching. But this seems just to be the most famous. People still talk about Matt Gidley and Tamana Tahu. And I say this all the time, and I'll probably not stop saying it. When I was a kid, obviously South were either not in the comp or weren't very good. So I would always support them, but I had to look for other people to look up to as well, and in other good teams, because I'm a kid. So Gidley and Tahu and pretty much all the Knights were real heroes of mine. It's just because the thing was, defenders knew it was coming. Gidley would run, he'd run towards the right, he'd draw a defender or two, and only two things were going to happen. He was either going to flick it to Tahu or he's going to put a grubber in, and more times than not, a try would appear. And it's funny, they didn't just do this for Newcastle, they did it in representative footy as well. Two obviously great players by themselves, but I think together they're even better. It's just, I like pairing these two together, taking nothing away from them individually obviously great, but as I said, we've seen some great centre wing combos over the years, but this is definitely one of the more famous ones, and ones that people still talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we talk about Matt Gidley, obviously the flick is the first thing that comes to mind, but a flick is all good and well, but you need to be able to beat your player as well.
Exactly.
For the flick to become what it is. And he did that every single time. And I think when we look back, the fastest guys of all time and whatnot, Gidley wouldn't be one of those guys, but similar to Hodges, he would just always beat the first defender. Every single time he would beat the first defender. For me, the moment that stands out for these two is the 2001 grand final where Gidley comes up with a flick, and Tamana Tahu, how on earth he scooped that ball up in that moment at that pace. There's probably been better wingers than Tamana Tahu, more talented guys, but in that moment, there was no one that Matt Gidley would have wanted more than Tamana Tahu right there.
I totally agree. And I think that that 2001 grand final, besides the 2014 grand final, I would say that's the grand final I've watched the most, purely because when I was a kid, I had it on VCR. I had that 2002, 2003. But for some reason, just always would always revert to watching that. So yeah, I've got that Tamana Tahu moment just lodged in my brain forever. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, obviously he also went over to the Super League for a number of years, played about 4 seasons over there. So his 4 seasons he played in the Super League. 2007 he played 33 games, 2008 32, 2009 31, and then 2010 he played 27 games. So in 4 years, he racked up 124 first-grade games for St. Helens, scoring 50-odd tries. So, and that was obviously when he was aging at the back end of his career. I'll tell you, obviously we're talking about this combo, and they're one of the greats of all time, but for me, when I think of Matt Gidley, and there isn't too much footage of it around, but if you can find some, the 2000 World Cup, the right edge was Matt Gidley and Wendell Saylor.
I think I saw you comment on this. Yeah. Or maybe, did you post it?
Maybe, I don't know. I think Dell posted it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I saw your comment, and that made me watch it. And you said something like, I wish we could have seen these two for New South Wales or something like that.
I think Dell replied with something like, my life would have been so much easier if I was next to him more than what I was. Because that was out, like, he obviously had the flick, but then quite often he would just beat his man, and then the last second call his winger under, turn him under, and there would just be space there every day of the week. And for a guy like Wendell, if you go back and watch some of the highlights in that 2000 World Cup, those two next to each other, obviously a star-studded team that had superstars everywhere. But imagine being a left edge defence waiting for Matt Gidley to get the ball, waiting for him to offload to fucking Wendell Saylor.
It's crazy. Like even in like when Gidley, as you said earlier, like when he's in the back end of his career, he was flicking the ball to fucking Brian Carney. Yeah. And like they had a good combo in that year as well. He was just, no matter who was outside him, you were definitely going to have a good day.
I think the greatest credit to Matt Gidley and the sort of footballer he was is that when you watch Joey play with him, Joey would just get the ball to him as quickly as he possibly could. Yep. Joey wouldn't try and do too much with the football. He wouldn't try and beat men or anything. Just the old saying, the better the centre, the earlier that they should get the ball. Matt Gidley was a cracking example of that.
Matt Gidley also, he was a 5'8" growing up, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he was. And because obviously Matthew Johns was the 5'8", they shifted him out to right centre. And man, what a masterstroke that turned out to be.
He's pretty underappreciated as far as centres of all time, I think. I think
Definitely.
That he's just not spoken about enough. I'm not sure, like he obviously wasn't the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, but just being a natural out-and-out footballer and an out-and-out centre as well, I reckon he's very underrated in the history of rugby league.
And also, he's a big reason Kalen Pong come to Newcastle. I think he was the CEO at the time, and I remember him talking about how, because you remember, I think they'd offered him 600 Ponga, something around 600 after he played like no footy, like hardly anything, and everyone was like, "That's way too much money. It's over." Obviously, we know now it was one of the best deals ever. But I remember Matt Gidley. I think he was talking to Blocker or someone on TV or on. I can't remember what the interview was, but I remember listening to it thinking, we had to pay overs of this guy because why else would anyone come to Newcastle at the moment? Because Newcastle were obviously going really poorly. And he pulled off one of the best deals the Knights have ever had. So if you're a Knights fan, you're loving Matt Gidley from whether he was signing Kalen Ponga or putting Tomato Tahu over. Just fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously these two won the 2001 Premiership together.
Biggest upset ever.
Unbelievable. What a crazy game of football.
I know.
That's just, even when I sit down and watch that game again, I'm still just shocked with how it all plays out.
I will never, you're right. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. Even though I've watched it many, many times.
The greatest team to never win a premiership, the 01 Eels for me.
So spewing for them.
There's some other fantastic teams out there, but that 01 Eels side was fucked. There was like parts in that season where Brian Smith was taking players off early and making them play with 12 just to challenge them.
Imagine, that's a what if. Save that.
Yeah.
Parramatta winning 01.
Because that's what Parramatta fans need, a little bit more fucking pain.
Do you know what? We should do what if for Parramatta 01 and 05.
01, 05, 09. There's a fair whack of them. I think the 05 one's a cracking one to talk about. And 01, obviously. Yeah. Fuck, unbelievable. Yeah, all right. Now, my first combo I'm going to go with is one of my favourites. I'm sure a lot of you will probably see this one coming. I've spoken a number of times, and I think Jackson Hastings brought it up the other day with us as well, Matty, talking about Ricky Stewart.
Yes.
And just how underappreciated he is as a halfback. And his combo with Laurie Daly was fucking incredible. Now, they're the only halves pairing that we've picked here, and credit to Laurie Daly. He was such a good footballer and such a versatile footballer that he actually played a lot of his career with Ricky Stuart out in the centres. And I think people forget, we talk about this halves combination. They actually only won one competition together as a halves pairing, which was 94. You look back to 89 and 90, it was Chris O'Sullivan who was playing 5'8" for the Canberra Raiders, and Laurie Daly, he was out in the centres. But, as we've seen with so many talented 5'8s, especially back then, your Laurie Dalys, your Brett Kennys, your Brad Fittlers, when you can shift these sort of guys out to centre and have almost like a second 5'8", similar to what Matty Burton was doing a couple of years ago for the Penrith Panthers. I mean, it's just such an advantage to have. And Laurie Daly, when he eventually did move into the 5'8" role with the Canberra Raiders, but I love going back and watching that old Raiders side because they would get the ball from sideline to sideline in 2 fucking passes.
That Raiders team, it's funny, because they obviously started as this young team that kind of come out of nowhere and, obviously beat the Tigers in that crazy, crazy grand final. But it wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Yeah. They were one of the most dominant teams of the 90s. And a lot of people older than me always talk about how they love watching the Bronx and the Raiders of the 90s and how much of a shame it was that they never actually got to play in a grand final. Whenever I think of that, I think of, Rabbitohs and Roosters haven't played in a grand final since 1930 or some shit like that. But everyone puts that as the number one. I wish this Broncos and Raiders team got to play in a grand final in the 90s because it's funny. Yes, they were this young team in the late 80s, but if you look how stacked they were, now that it's all said and done in hindsight, it's just a crazy, crazy team. Crazy team.
And, I think there's a really fair argument that considering how good this team was, they potentially underachieved. I mean, you look at 1993, they're going to shit in for a premiership for all money. Ricky Stuart gets injured. They lose this grand final to Penrith in 91, a really close game there that they were well and truly in. And that's not taking anything away from this great Raiders side. But, I mean, if we could look back and they would have won another 2 comps, it really wouldn't surprise me. I think if Ricky Stuart didn't get injured in 93, I think they win that comp for sure. Then they would have won it in 94 as well. Incredible stuff. And when I look at Ricky Stuart and Laurie Daly, I just think sometimes you see halves pairings and the half and the 5'8" are a little bit too similar, or maybe they lack a kicking game between them, or you look at these two, and Ricky Stuart, he was, the best long kicker of the time. Yep. He had one of the best long passes in the world. A nice little running game, but wasn't a running half. Whereas Laurie Daly, on the other hand, one of the best ball runners, full stop, I think we've ever seen. I think it's really slept on that Laurie Daly, he could come off both feet with huge steps. You saw him do it in Origin on so many occasions. He's similar to Freddie in that he could play 6, he could play out in the centres. He didn't really have to play 13 throughout his career, but if he would have got the opportunity to play there, he would have fucking brained it there, Laurie.
I think that running game really suited State of Origin.
Yeah.
And I think that if you go back, well, not even go back, if you take notice of former Origin players talk about the best players they've played with in Origin, a lot of them say that Laurie Daly was born to play Origin for the reasons you just said, and obviously he was similar at club level, but yeah, you're right, they were so different, Ricky and Loz, but they complemented each other so well because together they were pretty much the perfect footballer.
I can't remember what game it was or what year it was, but there's a tackle that Laurie Daly makes in State of Origin one year. Is it on Marty Bella? I think it might be. Front rower takes a hit up straight at Laurie Daly, sort of, defending on an edge there. I reckon it's one of the great textbook tackles of all fucking time, especially for a 5'8". Have you got it there, Matty? I'm pretty sure it was on a front rower.
Yeah, I'm watching it now. It's
just
type in Origin moments, Daly the poleaxe.
The pole.
It's just
done. Couldn't have named it better.
Yeah, and he just got Highmarsh and that talking about it. It's so good. And then was it the same game, or I don't know if it was the same game where he stepped off the left foot twice and scored under the post? He's just such a good player, Loz.
Yeah, and he was, I feel like with Laurie Daly, it was either he could throw a 15-metre spiral pass with those old fucking footballs that were awful, or he would run, and you could tell when he was going to run, but similar to what you said with Matt Gidley, you couldn't stop him. He could come off both feet, and similar to Brad Fittler, the beauty of Laurie Daly was that he could beat you in so many ways. He could pass around you, he could kick around you, he could just go, fuck it, I'm just going to muscle you here. I could just run over the top of him if I wanted to. A huge body, just a freakish player, Laurie Daly. And as we said, Ricky Stuart, one of the best kicking games of all time. I still think it's the best long kicking game of all time. And I imagine the play the ball on the right-hand side of the field on that sideline. 2 seconds later, it's in the hands of Mal Meninga on the left tram line. And they would just do it so often. And obviously, like, line speed and everything was so different back then and whatnot. The game was a little bit slower. But the way that they moved the ball, it's a winning formula in any time of rugby league ever.
Yeah, totally agree.
And we had Jackson on here the other day talking about Mitchell Pearce and Todd Carney, the way that they used to move the ball. Fuck, I reckon these two, considering when they were playing and the balls that they were passing from sideline to sideline, I'd put them as, the best halves combination as far as getting a ball from one sideline to the other of all time.
And that just, especially when there's just guns littered all over the park. So there's just threats coming everywhere in that Canberra team. It would have been such a joy to watch. I really, really wish I got to watch them like week in, week out.
Yeah, and as you said, I wish we would have seen, even though we probably wouldn't have been alive for it, but to see that Broncos and that Raiders grand final.
That's what we deserved and we didn't get it.
Yeah, and that's where we spoke about the other day that we consider, because we got to watch them play the entire year and everything, and we were old enough to enjoy it, the 2017 Melbourne Storm side. Give me a 3-way round robin between those three sides. Take my fucking money.
Yeah.
I'm done. That'd be unreal. All right. Our last combo. Now, they've all been combos of two. This one's going to be a 3-way combo. And when you're talking about combos in rugby league, we couldn't possibly leave these three out. Cam Smith, Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater. I think, I was going to say arguably, I don't think that's fair, the best hooker of all time.
Yeah, zero doubt.
Zero doubt. Arguably, if you want to throw in your Clive Churchills and these sort of guys, the best fullback of all time. Personally, I just think he is the best fullback of all time. And then Cooper Cronk might not be the best halfback ever because of Joey and these sort of guys, but I think it's fair to call him the best winner of all time who wore the 7 jersey, Matty.
I just think it's just best to call these three just the undisputed kings of their position in this era. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and I mean, I think Cooper Cronk's the only one that there would be a real argument about him not being the best in his position, which I understand. And there were guys that had more ability that played the position, but there's only been one guy that's had as much success as Cooper Cronk.
And like if we're talking club rep state, like Thurston moved to 6 to accommodate Cronk, so like it's a fair argument to call him that, I reckon.
8 series in a row, he took one off.
Yeah,
that's the one that New South Wales win. Fucking shocked me.
Crazy.
And it's crazy. If you go back and watch that series, every minute that Cooper Cronk is on the field, Queensland are winning that entire series.
Wow.
Until he gets injured in game 1, they're winning 6-0. Then they lost. He misses game 2, they lose that. He comes back in game 3 and they won by 20 points.
Just quietly, game 1 2014 is my favourite origin of all time.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be if Cooper Cronk played the whole thing though.
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
To be fair. But it still is, 100%.
They would have got what? 8, 9, 12 in a row?
Yeah. Thank fuck Cooper Cronk took a series off.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Thanks for breaking your arm.
Yeah. Cheers, legend. So Cooper Cronk, the only one that you could say isn't the best in his position of all time, I think.
Yeah. But like, again, obviously Thurston was the best halfback, but Cronk, he's right up there. So
yeah,
they were just the kings, all of them.
And, we spoke about a couple of weeks ago in that Rugby League World Cup final, I think for all Kangaroos fans, our favourite moment by far and away was right side to Cleary, chuck it back to Cam Munster, inside to James Tedesco for him to score. That was a Tuesday for the big three.
Yeah, and I just loved how, like, a lot of people, including me, hated Queensland especially, didn't like Melbourne. To be fair, I never hated Melbourne as much as everyone else, purely because I liked watching them play. But no matter what, no matter who you support, there's just something beautiful about the three of these players combining. And from what I understand, they pretty much ran the training sessions at Storm, and it all started there. And everyone kind of knew what we were watching. We were watching absolute greatness. And when they kind of split up after 2017, it was a little bit sad, but we got fucking 10 years or however long it was of absolute magic. And I think we're all pretty grateful for it.
I was just having a look on Instagram. There's just a stat that I'm sure if you've listened to my podcast for a while, you'd probably know. But just to give you an indication of these three, so between 2011 and 2013, so what's that, 3 seasons? In those 3 seasons, Cooper Cronk, he played 67 games. He collected 78 Dally M points in that time.
Wow.
Cameron Smith played 72 games. He collected 60 Dally M points in that time. Billy Slater played 69 games and collected 64 Dally M points. So across those 3 seasons, they all went above 60, and Cooper Cronk got 78 across 3 seasons. They're all in the same fucking team. They're stealing points off each other, and they're still all going 60 plus, and Cooper Cronk almost got 80 across those 3 seasons.
Oh my God. That is just unbelievable.
And it wasn't like that was their absolute peak time either.
No.
They only won one comp in that time.
And like, did you say 2011?
Yep, 2011.
They were coming back from the salary cap shit.
100%.
They just fucking, I know they didn't make the grand final because of some Sean Johnson brilliance, but like it was seamless for them. It was crazy.
What is that, 60, 70? Yeah, it's like 220 Dally M points across those 3 years for just those 3 guys. And once again, they're in the same team. They're sharing points with each other.
Just crazy.
It's insane what they managed to achieve.
And it's just like the combo that had, like, even like as a 3, obviously, but just, I think like obviously Billy and Cam, like Billy knew where Cam was going to be when he was going to be. Cam knew where Billy was going to be when he was going to be. And then like obviously Billy and Cooper would always take the ball to the line and Slater would just pop up somewhere. But then when all 3 of them would combine, it was just, defenders had a really tough time defending it, even though you knew it was going to happen. That's been the theme of this whole podcast.
Yeah.
Even though they knew it was going to happen, how are you going to possibly stop it?
What are you going to do?
And you know what? They didn't. They all retired, so they didn't stop it.
No one stopped
No
them.
one ever stopped it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's well, I mean, they all retired with a premiership, didn't they? Yeah, Billy Slater retired. Oh no, he came back in 18.
Slater didn't. Yeah.
Slater lost in a grand final the year before he won the Clive.
Yeah.
Which we won't talk about. And then the other 2 retired with premierships. Incredible. Now, we spoke about, obviously, the Kangaroos. They spent seemingly 8 weeks getting ready to have that one play that came off, whereas these 3 would do it week in, week out. And we wouldn't. It got to the point where those sort of tries weren't even impressive anymore.
Yeah.
Because they just did it so often. Is there tries that stand out for you throughout their careers? And it might not be all 3 of them. It might just be 2 of them. For example, 2012 will always stand out for me, that try that Billy Slater scored where Cooper Cronk just threw it blind to him.
Yeah.
That's one that will always stand out for me. Have you got any tries from these 3 that stand out to you?
Oh, well, that's the big one. But I think, God, there's a million. You put me on the spot, I don't remember an exact one. There's one I remember where the Storm were wearing some alternate jersey. I think that was a bit of red. I don't even know who they were playing. They might have been playing Gold Coast or Penrith or someone. But I remember they scored this incredible, it was just vintage because it was like kind of, it wasn't at the back end of their career, but it was like in the second half, and it was just vintage Smith, Slater, Cronk. But I mean, take a pick. They did it a million times.
There was a few that I remember too, sort of probably in like the second half of their career, where Cameron Smith would just kick from dummy half, would like chip kick from dummy half, sort of towards the post, and Slater would just come out of fucking nowhere and take the ball. Just incredible. And you know, as much as the highlights are great, they're also the 3 guys that, as far as their worst games, 7s.
Oh, at worst.
At worst. Like
certainly Smith. Like Smith was probably not even. I'd say Smith was probably at an 8 on a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, Slater, his entire career, what he did playing fullback, if there's any position in the world where you're going to get caught out, it's going to be fullback. Seemingly never did. I mean, there's that one moment was it the World Cup final?
Yeah.
Where he throws the ball in.
Yeah.
Outside of that, find me another moment that you remember where Billy Slater wasn't at his.
But the thing was, when Slater was the one doing all the freaky shit. So obviously, at some point, he's gonna make a mistake.
Yeah.
And he made that mistake twice in his freaking career.
Yeah.
Like it's just incredible. I tell you what's a good watch. I don't know if it's on KO. I hope it is. If it is, I'm gonna watch it tonight. I remember a couple of years ago they did all the tries of like Greg Inglis and a few other players, and they had one of Billy Slater. So they just did his first try all the way up to his last try. Just watch it. It's the best thing ever.
Now, Billy Slater, he ended up, he came pretty close to Kenny Irvine, didn't he?
Yeah, he's
like reasonably close compared to other guys.
In the 190s, I think.
Wow.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
And this was also a guy that...
He wasn't playing wing, put it that way.
Yeah, he wasn't playing wing. He also, at the start of his career, you know, unwanted by a few clubs. He had to drive himself down to trial out for the Melbourne Storm, and then never left after that.
191 tries. And then
191 tries.
And 12 for Queensland and 27 for Australia. 27 tries in 30 games for the Kangaroos.
Fuck that. How many tries did Ken Irvine? Is it 212?
212, yeah.
So what did he fall 20 short?
20 short at fullback.
At fullback. And and what he missed, did he miss the entire 2016 season?
He missed, well, Munster was fullback in the grand final. So yeah, it would have been 2016. But I'm pretty sure he missed basically 2 years because, here we go, I got it here. So he played, 7 games in 2015 and 1 game in 2016. He missed 2 full years basically.
If he plays those seasons, I'm backing him in.
Oh.
I'm backing him in well and fucking truly.
100%. Although, if he played those 2 seasons, would he have played on until 2018? We don't know. But let's say he did, then he would have, yeah.
I reckon if he played those 2 seasons without those injuries and didn't have to go through all that, I reckon he could have played beyond 2018.
Yeah, possibly.
Did anyone think he was done after 2018? Like, he didn't look like a guy that was spent to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, nah, fair call.
I reckon he could have played more, but incredibly, when you have a look through his entire career, in the last 2, mate, even when he came back, in his last 2 seasons, he played 41 games. He only scored 18 tries, which is pretty low by Billy Slater standards. You look outside of that, outside of injury-plagued seasons at the back end, he only scored below 10 tries once throughout his whole career. That was 2006, where he scored 5 in 15 games.
And I think that was the year he might have got suspended once or twice because he was a bit reckless back in the day, Billy Slater.
He did get himself in a bit of curry here and there.
Yeah. So I think he might have been a bit suspended that year, so that's why he didn't score that many tries.
I'll never forget that. One of the first tries I remember seeing him score when he was really young would have been 03, 04, and I think he was playing centre. I think it might have been his debut when I think it was Cronulla, he just gassed them.
Yeah, well, he did, but if you look on the other side of things, it was Gow chasing him, and Gow was kind of keeping up with him.
Really?
Yeah, so Gow had a bit of toe back in the day.
I think Slater as well, when we're talking about his greatest tries, that origin moment, the chip, Billy the Kid, fucking... I remember talking to Anthony Minicello about it on my podcast, and he just sort of said that I think he came off his left, and Minnie sort of said, it's fine, I had him covered, and he knew I had him covered, so he had to do something else. And to think in that moment, I'm going to chip over his head. When it's one-on-one, like, if that play doesn't go that, like, if it doesn't bounce to Billy Slater, if he fucks it up, imagine how much shit he would have copped.
Oh, yeah. Because he wasn't even, wasn't he playing wing as well?
Yeah, he's playing wing, yeah. So he floated infield, and he was young at that stage too.
Yeah,
he
just had that youthful.
What was that 2004?
I think so, yeah.
I think it was 2004. So he made his debut in 2003. So when he scored that try, he'd played about 30 first grade games.
Jesus. Yeah, so he debuted in 2004. So it would have been his first series.
He's playing on the wing, and he scored 2 tries in that game. They won 22-18.
That's ballsy. Youthful arrogance.
Yeah, on the other side of the park, Matt Gidley and Tamana Tahu.
Wow.
Matty Bowen on the bench for the Queensland too. A few of our selected players here in this side.
Love it.
Unreal. Matty, anything else you want to chuck in about the big 3? Any moments, tries, anything you want to touch on?
Will we ever see anything like it ever again?
I was going to ask you. No.
I don't think so, eh? I hope so, but...
I can't imagine a world where it could possibly ever happen again. To think that they came through Queensland Cup together, went down to Melbourne. Cameron Smith had been brushed by the Brisbane Broncos. He goes down there. Billy Slater was unwanted. He had to drive himself down for a trial. Cooper Cronk wasn't a halfback.
Yeah.
For it to play out the way it did is simply unbelievable. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it. I think it's going to take some very special individuals to be a fullback, a hooker, to be the best fullback, hooker, halfback in the game at the same time, and be willing to take enough pay cuts to stay at the same club.
And to be like basically the same age. Well, Slater and Cameron Smith literally have the same birthday.
They're born on the same day.
I think Cronk's maybe like 6 months younger.
Yeah.
So it's just freaky how it all worked out.
It's crazy. I don't know if we'll ever see. And in the future, when we don't see it again because guys go elsewhere to get big money deals, I back it 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
But to be part of such a special thing like this that dominated club, Origin, and International Rugby League for so long. It's fucking incredible. I'll tell you what, if the big three didn't exist, I think our teenage years would have been so much more enjoyable from a state of origin perspective. It's not even funny.
Oh, I know.
I fucking hate when you hate someone so much, but you've got nothing but respect for them.
It's just, isn't it just crazy how they had those three in Thurston, just tearing it up for a decade, and then throwing Lockyer, throwing Inglis.
Thurston as well, the exact same age.
Yeah.
All born in the same year.
Fucking wild.
Produced
Absolutely wild.
three like that. They've produced 4 spine players in 1 year that are probably better than spine players we've produced for the last 25 years.
Insane. What a time. What a time. Imagine being a Storm/Queensland fan. Far out.
It's crazy when you look back at the history of the Melbourne Storm that they obviously won in their second year.
Second year?
And then these three appear.
Yeah.
And not they got lucky to have them or whatever. Like, credit to the Melbourne Storm, but to think they've only been around for, 25 years or something along those lines, and to have all these players, it's just...
And like even now, they've got Munster, Hughes, Pappenhausen. They're just such a great organisation.
Yeah, it's so impressive. It's so fucking impressive. And you're right, all the hookers that are, all the players that have come after them in those positions, whether it's Hughesy, Munster, Harry Grant, Brandon Smith.
Sorry, I can't believe I forgot him.
Nico fucking Hines. All these guys that have come through in those jerseys after have been the best in their position, or if not, they've gone on to be the best in their position at another club somewhere else. It's even if you have a look at, the major awards over the last few years. Nico Hines, Dally M medal this year. Ryan Pappenhausen, Clive Churchill the other year. Brandon Smith, Dally M hooker of the year. Like, they just stack up these awards in all these positions. And Jerome Hughes is exactly the same. He wasn't a fucking halfback. He was an unwanted fullback.
And Paps was their third string fullback like 3 or 4 years ago. It's just
Scott Drinkwater, how good was he this year?
Yeah.
Another one that went through. Yeah. I hate him. I respect him, but God, I hate him. It's just they just made life so hard for us for so long.
I'm so glad, except for D or Dave, I don't know any Storm fans. And you know what? Dave's actually the first Storm fan I really, really know. So I think that's been lucky as well, that no one's really got to rub it in.
Yeah, I think that was the beauty. Like, imagine if they were a Sydney team and they were dominating that era. Like, it just would have been fucking awesome. I remember going to those grand finals and they'd be out there that night, they'd be enjoying themselves, but then they'd fuck off and you wouldn't see them for another year.
If they were the Roosters, I probably wouldn't be working for Bloke. I'd probably be supporting AFL.
You'd be very keen on the Soccer World Cup right now.
Oh, I'd be loving it.
You'd be glued to it. We done pulling stumps?
Done.
Done and dusted. Guys, thanks for joining us once again on the off-season. We've got more best 17s for 2023 coming this week, so stay tuned for those. They'll be dropping on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then more off-season episodes as per usual coming Wednesdays and Sunday nights on YouTube. Thanks for your support as always, guys, and we'll see you soon.